Hello and welcome to our third episode. I can't believe we're already on episode number 3. Thank you for all the support, all the people watching our first 2 episodes. The first with Greg Howard, the CEO of the Champaign Family Y, and just recently we put out our interview with Polly Trinner from the Visitors Bureau. It's amazing to just see. We were hoping that when we start to put this out, that it would be a way to connect with more people in our community and educate them on all the wonderful things happening in Champaign County. And today, I am so blessed to have the very talented, world famous Riley Johnson with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Ryan.
Riley, if you don't know Riley, I met him virtually. We hopped on a video call early on in his journey, and he took on this little task of creating a giant mural in downtown Urbana, right? So, in the Urbana mural. So, Riley, let's just start off. Tell me a little bit about yourself, kind of, how you're connected to Champaign County, what you're doing now, and how you ended up, painting a beautiful mural on the side of a building here in downtown
Thanks for
Urbana.
having me today, Ryan. The pleasure's all mine. I appreciate you. So basically, I am a student, an artist, an entrepreneur, and I think I kind of try to meld all of those things into one, and that's kind of where I want to go with my career path. So I am currently a student at Miami University studying arts management and arts entrepreneurship. I got started doing portraits about 5 years ago during COVID. Everything shut down, and I went to my dad and I was like, I really want to sell my art in some sort of way. And the incentive kind of was that I wanted to buy my own PC. And of course, I had not worked anywhere else in my life before. And so he was like, yeah, if you set this up and you make some art and you sell it, then I'll go 50-50 with you on
Nice.
this PC. It was probably like $1,000 PC.
Yeah.
And for me, that was a big deal. And that kind of pushed me to be like, let me find some sort of client who wants their shoes painted or their portrait drawn. So those were the very first 2 things that I did. I started doing a few shoe customs, and then it kind of evolved into portraits. And ever since then, it's been a lot of portraits. And then started going to the gym here in Urbana, Anytime Fitness. And the general manager at the time had no clue who she was, but Mr. Sapp, actually the band director here at Urbana, he knew who I was and my involvement in the art. And so he actually introduced me to the general manager in my art. And so she gave me the opportunity to paint on it was more like a chalk, but it was like a temporary chalk paint.
Very cool.
On the entrance, this like 6-foot by 8-foot wall. Very simple, but that's where my love for murals kind of evolved from. Ever since then, it's been a few gigs after another. And then since this past summer, I really wanted to do something that wasn't internship based. It was kind of just all my own initiative, taking action to make something that was really huge and giving back to Urbana, which ended up being the Urbana mural, and it's evolved so much since then.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We were just talking before we started recording of we had to stop and think of when the last time we spoke was, and it was early on in your journey when you were still getting feedback from the community of what needed to be on this mural. And I remember one of the things that really stood out from our call is you kept saying like, this is not my mural, it's Urbana's mural, you know, and like, what does Urbana want? What do they want to see with that? And I thought that was special to, especially someone your age, to be able to recognize that from a community standpoint and understand the importance of what you were working on at the time. So talk to me a little bit about, how did this project even get started? Like, how did this idea come to be? Who approached who? Like, how did this get legs to even turn into what it has now?
Yeah, right. So actually 8 months back, believe it or not, I went door to door to different businesses, just your classic sales pitch, going up and seeing what walls would work, what made a good canvas, what walls were in good shape. And so there's a lot of good options here in Urbana. There's a lot of room for more murals, but there was this one specific wall at 108 Miami Street, which Jamin Selman owns. And he's the owner of a few different properties here in Urbana, Selman Insurance. I eventually landed on him and gave him all this whole sales pitch. He had no clue who I was at the time, but I also had the backing of Polly Trinner and Taylor. I pitched this idea to them even before that, and they jumped right on into it. But they're like, you got to find a place, you got to find ways to finance this. And so there's all these like hoops that you have to
absolutely
go through. And so Jamin thankfully financed the wall repairs that wall really needed, and was super down to take on this project. There was only about like a rough idea of what the project was going to be, and it was going to be something that kind of honored Urbana and its legacy, its people, told its story, history, its past, its present, and even some of its future. And of course, a few of my other goals were just to be able to bring in the community in some sort of way, and do it well. So do it like as professionally as I could.
Yeah.
And so those were kind of the main goals that Jamin was kind of going off of. And so he trusted me. The whole community believed in me. And so from then, I created this video, what I called the initial outreach video, and posted that on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, and it scaled to about 58,000 views across all of its platforms,
Nice.
which is just crazy to think about. With people pouring their stories and being very heartfelt, all of their memories and photos that really went into inspiring this mural, and it became a moment of like reflection and pride, which I think is very, very important and very, very like custom to Urbana, I
Sure.
guess.
Yeah.
So a lot of that inspiration really guided the mural design and allowed me to figure out what was important to Urbana and what landmarks and things people wanted to see in a mural, because there's just so much in Urbana
Yeah.
that deserves recognition, and I wish I could put that into all,
Yeah.
one mural. And so that became one of the biggest challenges, is not what to include, but what to disclude, because
Yeah.
there's just so much.
Sure.
And I think that's kind of a testament now with how the mural looks, is that there's always something to look at when you go back.
Yeah. I feel like every time I walk by, I see something new. I'm like, I don't think I
Yeah.
saw that before. Something else stands out to me, which is such a cool concept.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear. So then from there, designed and um, planned all the preparation steps. The wall needed repairs, so that was handled. And then I also took on 4 supporting artists who I've worked with, 3 in the past, one at Miami University in a mural class, and then 2 others in Cincinnati. And we all did this really large mural in Over the Rhine from Cincinnati. And that was like a big project, scaling 5 stories of scaffolding. Lots of good experience with those artists, and they're all very, very talented in their own ways. And they brought so many great skills and quirks to the project.
Yeah.
And I really couldn't have done it without them. So a big thank you to them, of course. And 5 weeks is the time that it took, which is kind of insane to me, but it's really hard to project.
Once you got started painting, it took 5 weeks to actually get it on
5
the wall.
weeks, exactly. Yeah. So starting with a blank slate, go from gridding out the whole wall. So there were 1,300 little squares, 1 foot by 1 foot squares. And that breaks up the design for us to then draw in and get
Wow.
everything proportional. There's, a few different ways that you can do that. A lot of people use
Yeah.
projectors at night. That technique we used a few times at night to get some of the text elements in, that are very intricate. There's one called the doodle grid, where you just kind of splurge and you just make different strokes on your canvas,
Yeah.
and then you overlay you take a picture of it, and then you overlay your design, and so that's kind of a grid in its way.
Okay.
And then there's one that's really, really cool I want to try out, and it's the biggest thing right now. It's all over TikTok and social media. It's using the MetaQuest 3 goggles, these VR headset goggles. Put them on, and
Interesting.
you can see exactly what you're looking at right in front of you, but then you can overlay your design, and it stays there. It somehow tracks it. And so as you're drawing in your design,
Wow.
you
That's
can
cool.
see exactly what your reference material
Yeah.
is.
I love hearing ways that technology continues
Yeah.
to evolve into helping creatives become more creative. And I just think that's so cool. Like you have some of these initial concepts, like, any kind of VR goggles is a great example of that, where it started with maybe a little bit of IMAX larger movie type concepts that you can have anywhere, to now where you've got Apple devices that you can do all these things in real time. And to hear that is now a thing is like, that's what's cool to me. It's just like hearing that continue to evolve. So let's talk about the mural itself a little bit. So
Mhm.
you mentioned how hard it was to have to kind of decide what goes on there, what doesn't, what's important to the community. Tell me about some of the things that did land on there. Like, what are some of the things that stand out to you that were important to be on there, or things that really connected, or you got a lot of feedback to say, like, this needs to definitely be on here? Because I'm sure you learned a lot about the community through this process as well. Because I think, somebody that grew up here, as I've known Urbana all my life, I learn things every day still doing what I do. And so I think it is super unique for you to be able to be getting all this feedback, especially at a young age, to be like, wow, there's a lot of history here. The perspective of what Urbana is, I'm still learning in my 40s, right? And
Right.
so I think it's super unique that you're doing that now. Walk me through kind of how some of this stuff came to be, some of the things that really stood out that were really important to be on there,
Right.
from a creative standpoint.
Yeah, so along with all of those community suggestions, I also did a big amount of research of my own and talked with the Champaign County Historical Society and
Yeah,
a few different people that are really heavily knowledged in Urbana's history. Just getting different perspectives, different voices, and going to the people that know it best. So, looking at all of those things and the stories that they would say deserve the recognition, but also some of the things that some people might not know. Like, you come into Urbana and you might not know that it's actually the home of the aviation light. And
yep,
Warren Grimes started this whole entire wave
a lot of
of
history
this
there.
aviation heritage in Urbana. And that's why we still have, the airport there today, the
Yeah,
Grimes Flying Lab, and all of those things. The fireworks that we annually celebrate, which are just these big traditions that Urbana, has and makes it for what it is.
yeah,
So a lot of the aviation history is at the top of the mural. There's two planes. There's the C-45A and then the B-25J, I believe, the Champagne Gal, which are two very iconic planes at the airport. And then there's the fireworks that surround it. There's, of course, the man on the monument, the most iconic thing in
yeah,
Urbana. Couldn't leave that out. And there's,
absolutely.
this huge metaphor that he's actually facing his walk towards home after war. So even like the way that he's facing in north is metaphorical.
Nice.
And then there's a lot of rolling hills and agriculture that are dispersed throughout the whole mural, kind of give it some space and room to breathe. There's a whole lot of silhouettes so that it kind of describes different people and perspectives and diversity. And I really hope that when you see the mural, you can not only see all these really cool things, but you can also see yourself in it.
Yeah,
And so I really wanted that to be clear through all of those silhouettes and figures to show activity and show growth in Urbana as
yeah,
well. A lot of those silhouettes were taken from yearbooks, actually, ever since the 60s from Urbana High School.
yeah.
So there was just one day where I rummaged through a bunch of different
So cool.
like yearbooks and picked out some silhouettes, a lot of the sports figures, the marching band, the football player,
Yeah,
the people walking down the graduation hill, because of course Urbana High School is a big thing.
yeah,
Our castle is a very monumental landmark here in Urbana. So the castle's in the mural design, and then the graduates are walking down the hill, which is our tradition here. And what I found actually interesting was that a lot of people that graduated, some alumni that graduated a long time ago, they didn't have the victory bell. But to me, it's like such a big
yeah.
thing in Urbana where you walk down the hill and you ring the bell and then you walk back up to start your life. So the victory bell is on there as well. I had the pleasure of talking to, I can't remember his name. I think it was Charlie Zirkle. So his
Okay.
mom, Jean Zirkle, who actually is the whole originator of Sparky, the mascot at Urbana, and was a big, big part of Urbana's, kind of growth and education. And she was just this iconic figure at the school at the time. And so she's recognized on the mural as well. So there's a lot about education in our alma mater. What else? Trying to think.
Was there anything in particular that was harder to paint? Like, was there any part of that was harder to bring to life than anything else when you were painting
Right,
it?
right. That's a good question. So a big consideration is not only what you're including, but how you're including it. So are you incorporating a logo or are you telling the story in a different way, such as like the 4-H is a big thing in Champaign County Fair.
Yeah,
And there's just so much to encompass in the Champaign County Fairgrounds that I basically just took the sign, which is very iconic, had some livestock around it, and some four-leaf clovers that are blowing in the wind to kind of
Very cool.
encapsulate all of the fairgrounds. And so there's different ways to kind of visually share that, and also like what the style is. So the Victory Bell is more of a flat kind of looking graphic, whereas the planes that I just mentioned are much more detailed, very intricate,
Yeah.
and there's so much detail on those already that, I wouldn't want to just completely wipe that away. So I'd say the planes were definitely one of the most intricate, realistic things that we painted, along with the train and the Johnny Appleseed apple
Yeah.
in the bottom left. So
Where did you start? What was the first thing that went onto the wall?
the very first thing that started on the wall. So with the grid method, there there's all this complications on if as you're going along and you're leveling out each individual square, it can't be perfect. So just your smallest inch will make the biggest difference at the end.
Sure.
And so we had to kind of step back and mess with the design a little bit, to make sure it aligned perfectly. So I think we started from left to right and kind of adjusted slightly to the left. So kind of just a fun fact for you. Um, and there were different parts that I knew I wanted to specifically do at certain times. I was Polly joked at the mural dedication how extremely organized I was with this project because I just had spreadsheet after spreadsheet
Yeah.
with paint indexes and different, sponsors and the sponsor awards, and the schedule that I had for my supporting artists and what we were doing in each day so that we could hopefully finish on this scheduled time. So each day I kind of had what we were working on and would try to pivot if we couldn't do that that day. There were some problems with the lift and how the alley actually goes down just slightly. It slopes
Yeah.
down in the slightest bit, which for a scissor lift, it doesn't like that at all. It likes to be leveled. And then there's also this drainage, this little sewer that dips down as well, maybe a quarter inch, half an inch. And that makes the biggest difference for the lift. And you can't go up to use it if it's not leveled. So what we ended up doing was, the most simple solution, but sometimes the most simplest solution is
Yeah.
the best solution, and that was just to go perpendicular to the wall instead of parallel to it.
Yeah.
And that deviation was a lot less for us to use the scissor lift,
Smart.
kind of, increments. So there was a lot to it, and I wanted to make sure to be as organized as I could so that I knew if a problem like that would arise, we could. And I think I'm kind of going off of what was
No,
the
you're
original
fine. You're fine.
question?
I was going to follow up a little bit with
Yeah.
the at what point, if at all, maybe you didn't, I would be freaking out through this entire process because I just, my brain doesn't work the same way yours does. But at any point through the planning, funding or the actual, creation and painting of it, did you have a freak out moment at any point?
I mean, it's yes. And that's the short answer, but there would be days because this project has been in the works for 8 months,
Yeah.
and there'd be days where I woke up and it was the most devastating thing ever because either a funding opportunity fell through
Yeah.
or the wall repairs weren't being finished in time, or it just with a project like this that you're crowdfunding from the ground up, you have no clue
Yeah.
if it's going to be greenlit or not.
Yeah. It's out of your control in a
It's
lot of
totally
ways.
out of my control, and there was so much on Urbana as well in this project that there was a lot to just trust and rely on.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I had Taylor Armstrong and Jamin Selman and Polly Trenner
Yeah.
along the ride with me, encouraging me and just making sure that things would get moved along as they go. And then, of course, my parents as well, encouraging me
Yeah.
through every step. And so there'd be just these highs and lows.
Yeah.
Each day would bring something new. There was like the one day that we talked virtually was like the most exciting day ever for me
Yeah.
because I was just kind of like pouring this whole project onto you,
Yeah.
and had somebody on the other end kind of hearing me out and understanding this vision and believing
Yeah.
in me.
It takes
So
people, I think, from an entrepreneurial side. I can't speak to anything as an artist because I am not an artist at all. But from an entrepreneurial side, I can relate with that. There's just sometimes you have a conversation with somebody and you in your head you're thinking maybe this is a little too crazy, right? But then you have that conversation where it connects with someone, and then they're like, this is awesome, man, I'm glad you're doing this, like let me know if I can help, right? And it just gives you that strength to continue to move on a little bit. And I could see even after our conversation, you know, I could see you'd pop up on, somebody else would be talking about you, or I'd see you on social talking to somebody else or an interview with something. I'm like, he's talking to the right people. He's getting connected to the right, like this is going to happen. Like I was just so proud of you because from an outside point of view, I was, you know, in your corner behind closed doors a
Right.
lot saying like, yeah, this is a great thing. But it was so cool to see so much happening that I didn't even know about that you were pushing forward, and knowing that those people that you were connecting with were true connections like that, that's going to actually help get this further. This is
Right.
getting more and more likely. At what point in the journey did you know this was going to happen? Like, where you're like, where it was the reality of like, we did it, this is actually going to happen, and I got to actually start thinking about painting it. I know you were thinking about it
Right.
the whole time, but at
Right.
some point it had to stand out of like, wow, we did it. There's like probably a success point, and then goes into, okay, now we got to get it done, we got to execute it.
Right. So the first couple of months, I was just totally in preparation phase and campaign phase. So I was wearing so many different hats, and I mean, nowhere near even being an artist at those
Sure.
times. So I think once that moment where I knew that this project was going to happen, I could turn on my artist
Yeah.
phase, and I could, be able to creatively pour my artistic expression into this, I guess. And that moment was when Taylor Armstrong basically he gave me a number. He was like, figure out a number where if this number we land on, and we raise this amount of money, that this project will happen. And then after that, all of the rest of the money will go towards, the long term longevity of the mural and the
Yeah.
preservation and better materials. Um, like we just installed a plaque, and there's going to be solar lights that I'm hoping to put up there as well,
Very cool.
um, and just kind of enhancing the mural as well. So that first $10,000 mark was the number that we had where I was like, oh, this is going to happen. Once we hit that, which was so early on, and
Yeah.
I'm so incredibly grateful for that, that there's people out there that were believing in me and trust this vision. Once that number was hit, I was like, okay, this is happening. And it was kind of that moment where I had to be like, wow, like take a step back and take all of this in, but also like get to work
Yeah.
because
Yeah. You're
this
on
is going to
timeline now.
happen. Yeah, we have a timeline now. And that timeline was basically just the summer. I wanted to get it done this summer before going back to school for
Sure.
my senior year. As much as that timeline seemed like 3 or 4 months to get it done, there's all these post mural things that you have to do, the mural dedication that I also had to worry about. So keeping to that timeline was also very, very important.
Yeah. Sure. You mentioned that you got to bring some people that you worked with, some other artists in. How cool was it to kind of share that experience with them as far as, like I said, what amazes me is the amount of things you had to learn through this process about Urbana, Ohio, right?
Mhm.
And so to be able to bring other people in and to say like, hey, this is what's really cool about this, and
Right.
then hey, we're going to actually go paint this, and can we, I'm sure there was a lot of conversation around the importance of certain pieces of that from an artistic side as well.
Mhm.
So how cool was it to bring in some people that you've worked with on other things and share Urbana, Ohio with them?
Yeah, so the supporting artists that I had, there's 4 supporting artists, 3 of which I worked with in the past, 1 that goes to Miami, and then 2 that did a mural with me in Over the Rhine,
Yeah.
and then the 4th one being Madison LaRock, who's a native from Urbana.
Yeah.
She actually jump-started this entire mural wave, and we have her to thank for that. She
Yes.
did the, Be the Light mural
Yep.
behind People's Bank. She's so incredibly talented, has her own very visually stunning artistic style, very playful and fun and colorful.
Yeah.
And so being able to bring not only her, but these other artists in that actually didn't know anything about Urbana, I got to introduce everything to them, and
Yeah.
they, kind of were overwhelmed by all of these things, but they were so interested in it and curious in it. One artist would come to the depot every day, and now that's like her favorite
That's
addicting
awesome.
spot now. And then it's, just everybody got along so well, and I really couldn't have done it without them. So having their help really allowed this project to happen because the days where none of them were scheduled and it was just me, it just felt like, wow, this is going to take forever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so having them in kind of doubled, tripled, and quadrupled the amount of time that it was painted.
I know that you worked with the local arts council as well. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that if there was a lot of people that had to come together to make this happen, right? It didn't
Right.
didn't happen overnight. We were joking. You didn't wake up one day and start painting the next and have a mural up, in 5 weeks. There was a lot of steps to this process. Kind of walk me through some of the people that made it a reality.
Right, right. A lot of the people that so there were 63 backers, I believe, total behind this project. And so there's a list of tiers and tier rewards that they all receive, which includes like t-shirts and mural prints. There's a mural print here
Yeah,
at Dee's Brew, as they're one of the platinum patrons, and I have them to thank for that.
yeah,
And so a lot of those people are either individuals or local businesses and organizations that contributed to this project. Among some of them are Kelly Fleming and Andrea Schiffer,
yeah,
Jamin Selman with Selman Enterprises LLC, and Dee's Brew and F&M Bank, Leanne Simpson, and just all these people that contributed to this project and believed in me, as well as other ways of contributing through in-kind donations or just support. So like Equipment U supplied the scissor lift rental for the entire month. The Arts Council, of course, were the fiscal bank, I guess, the nonprofit that allowed the project to be funded through and earmarked for the Urbana mural, and the Chamber of Commerce Visitors Bureau. So Polly Schrenner, of course, and Mike Major, who just such a lovely experience with him. I used to take art lessons with him when I was like 9 to 12 years
that's
old,
awesome.
very young, and he really inspired me to go down that path. We did hold a bunch of different drawings and paintings and sculptures. Even I still have this huge life-size bear sculpture that we got to cast and mold
Very cool.
with him. And so this was very full circle to be able to collaborate with him on this project.
Yeah,
And so he did an art print with the mural design overlaid inside of it and his artistic style, as well as just provided a lot of support and advice and things like that. So I have him to thank. And then just people along the way being supportive, sharing the story, and just, getting excited about this project,
yeah,
like you, Ryan. So, just so many people, and I wish I could name them all.
yeah. There's too many to name.
Too
It
many
takes
names.
a village, as they say, right?
Yes, it
But
really
yeah,
does.
and I think it I think it's so cool to just take a step back and reflect now. We talked a couple times of like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this podcast thing. Maybe we can time it up, and and you kind of push back, which I'm happy you did, to say like, hey, like we're finishing up on these different things. I think it's great to be able to now you can reflect on, wow, that's there. And when you go by, it's and I think it's super cool now. Like where my head goes is like that was one thing to make happen, which is great, but now that's going to live on for who knows how, hopefully forever, right?
Yeah.
Like it's going to be taken care of. It's going to be
Right.
something there, and people will be talking about this time when, your grandkids come and see it and things like that. And I just think that the legacy of, what art can be in Champaign County is amazing. And I think that there's a lot of history here with art and a lot of, amazing artists and a great support system. And then when you combine that with something really cool for the community, I just think it breeds something amazing. And I'm
It
so
really
proud of
does.
you for what you've been able to do. Can you give any advice if somebody else has got a crazy idea, not even art related, but just something to
Mhm.
where they've got this dream or something that they think that they can do to better their community, that maybe some people would look at them like they're cross-eyed, right? But like,
Yeah.
what kind of advice would you give to somebody that may be listening to this or watching this and they're like, man, I got a really cool idea. Where do you start?
Yeah. I think if you have that idea, you have that light. And if you don't have that idea, find something that makes your eyes light up. And when you find that thing, take that risk, because if you don't take that risk, that's the biggest risk of all. And I think especially for artists or just different groups or entrepreneurs, it's hard each day waking up and having to defend yourself or defend your service, defend your product, defend your art. And so, you don't have that luxury. Um, Remember where you started and what got you in that in the first place is what I would say.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great advice. Riley, thank you so much for not only coming on here and doing it's been a joy to get to know you, to be able to support you. If there's ever anything that I can ever help connect dots or do anything for, please reach out. But
Thank you so
I'm so
much.
proud of watching this come from an idea to to a concept to an actual mural on the side of a building in
Mhm.
downtown. I just think it is such a special story, and I can't emphasize enough the amount of professionalism and quality conversations that not only I have had, but so many people in the community have had for someone your age. I can't wait to see what you continue to do in your lifetime. And I hopefully at some point we circle back with something else cool that you're doing
Yeah.
in or outside of Champaign County.
Thank you. Yeah.
And just know that like you said, you had a light and it inspired you to do that. That light will now shine on for who knows how long.
Yeah.
And I'm proud that you were able to make it happen.
Thank you so much. I feel like I set the bar high, and I hope that people see that. So it's only up from here to set that bar even
Love
higher.
it.
Yeah.
Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Riley.
Thank you so much.